know how quickly the leadership landscape can shift? Your business is growing and firing on all cylinders. Or perhaps you're launching a new venture and your small business idea has ballooned into a big business. Maybe you just graduated and you're navigating your dream job, only you're realizing that it's more job than dream. One day you're accomplishing all that you set out to do, but all of a sudden the terrain changes and even the best leaders can be rendered paralyzed. My name is Trey, and here at the John Maxwell Company, we work with leaders just like you to see around the curve, to not just anticipate change, but embrace it and leverage it to achieve unprecedented results. Today, I'm excited to welcome you to an exclusive online event with John C. Maxwell, with a sneak peek of the teaching from his book and the online course, Leadership, 11 Essential Shifts Every Leader Must Embrace. But this exclusive course is more than just the timeless insights and principles we always learn from John. It's loaded with practical, applicable exercises with several influencers and leaders who are making a mark on the world right now. I'll tell you more about this course and a special offer once you've experienced the event. But for now, let's get started. Here's your insider look at Dr. John C. Maxwell on how you can leadership.
When I use the term leadership, what I'm talking about is having the willingness, the ability to make positive changes in your life as a leader and in the life of the organization, the company, the group that you lead. That's what a leadership is. If you make the right kind of a change, a right kind of a shift, you're going to become better because of, as a leader, and the people around you are going to become better because of that. I was asked recently in an interview, they said, John, how do you stay on top of your game? It's a great question. I mean, how do I, at 71, still love leadership, still run the companies that I have and do leadership the way that I do it? And I remember when they asked me the question, how do you stay at the top of the game? I remember my answer, and that is, I realize that the game doesn't stay the same. It's like a baseball game. Okay, it's called baseball, but every game is different. It's no such thing as a baseball game and the next game is going to be identical of the last one. You know, Babe Ruth even said, yesterday's home run won't win today's game. And so when we think of shifting, when we think of making leaderships in our life, what we need to understand is we have to continually be in the process of change. One of my earlier mentors when I was in my late 20s, Olin Hendricks, was the one who shared with me. He said, John, if you're going to grow, you're going to continually change. It's just a fact that if you grow, that means that your life will be full of leaderships, that you will constantly be changing. On our John Maxwell team, one of the things I do is I have what we call Minute with Maxwell, which is just kind of a thing where I online do a minute with a word. They'll give me a word. I don't even know what the word's going to be. And then I teach off of it for a minute. In fact, I had a guy come up to me the other day and said, I watch Minute with Maxwell every morning. I said, well, good. Thank you very much. He said, I know how you could improve it. I said, oh, good. Well, how can I improve it? He said, have a half a minute. Just cut that baby in half. You know what I mean? You can get better. Trust me, you can get better. But on one of the Minute with Maxwell, they gave me two words, and they asked me to kind of talk about it for a moment, and the two words were fast forward. Now, they picked that up from a theme of a company that I had spoken for, and when they gave me the two words fast forward, here's what I said. I said, here, let me take fast first. Fast means faster. In other words, it's never going to slow down. I love people who say, you know what, I tell you what, it's just the pace is going crazy. I can hardly wait for things to slow down. Slow down? That means you're going to die. Things aren't going to slow down. Fast is faster, and it keeps going. With technology and social media, fast just gets faster. I mean, fast isn't going to get slower. Fast isn't going to stop. Fast isn't going to call time out. Fast is faster. And let me say something about forward. Forward is shorter. When you think into the future, it's not as long as it used to be. When I started off as a young leader, my goodness, I had a 10-year game plan, which was kind of the long-range plan. You did 10 years, 5 years was mid-range, 2 years was short range. Remember, I started to ask you if you remember that, and then I look at you, and you're too young to remember that. Trust me, okay? Just believe the old boy, okay? That we used to have these, 5 years, and now 2 years. I mean, that's like a real long-range plan. You see, fast is faster, and forward is shorter. And if that's the case, which it is, if that's the case, then we're going to have to be able to lead or shift faster in the changes that we want to make. So I just wrote down, and just think about these for a moment. You don't have time to write them down, but just give them some thought. I just wrote down some leadership questions, such as, how open am I to change? Am I becoming a better listener? When will I begin to ask more questions? Can I become comfortable with ambiguity? And do I rely on my intuition enough? How adaptable am I as I begin to lead? And I want to just say something about being adaptable. There's a difference between adaptability and conformity. Conformity is a negative quality of just blending in. It's becoming average. It's usually based out of kind of maybe a weakness of fear of rejection. And that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about adaptability, which is a positive quality, which is very proactive in adjusting so that you can succeed and do better and grow. And it's a strength that's based on confidence in your intuition and confidence in your abilities. So I want to spend the rest of my time, because I'm very excited about this, I want to spend the rest of my time talking to you about how to lead or shift successfully. Because that's what we all want to do. We all want to become a better leader. We all want to make these positive changes in our life, which will allow us to develop and grow in a larger portion of our leadership. So how do we do this? So I'm ready. Now, I know you're ready. I mean, you're right there. I mean, you're on the edge of the seat. You're taking notes. I can tell you're ready, but I'm a little concerned about the person on your left. And I can tell you're concerned also. I mean, as soon as I said I'm a little concerned about the person on your left, I noticed you just kind of went and said, yeah. It just doesn't seem to me that they may be quite as sharp as you. Now that, we're just beginning today, and I'm just kind of just letting you know that the person on your left, first of all, they're a good person. They're a good person, but they may need your help. And what I mean by that is, if you just kind of see them not quite catching, just take your notes and maybe say, I'll send you a copy. You know what I'm saying? In fact, just look at them right now and say, it's okay, I'm going to help you. Go ahead and tell them that. It's okay, I'm going to help you. So how do you and I leadership successfully? Number one, let's go. We have to continually learn, unlearn, and relearn. Harvard Business Review says that when you get your regular bachelor degree from college, it has basically a 5-year lifespan now. In about 5 years, 6 years, pretty much what you learned is going to be outdated and you're going to need to update. And what I would like to do is I would like to, in this session, just kind of go through this little, kind of learn, unlearn, relearn process, but by giving to you what I call the cycle of success. I think that if you and I want to be successful in this process of growing and just getting better, there's a 5-step kind of cycle that I want to give you. Now, this isn't mine. It's really Paul Martinelli's, who's the president of the John Maxwell team. We do year-end reviews, and in our year-end review last year, Paul began to walk me through this cycle of success that he uses in building the John Maxwell team. In 6 years, we've built a team of 20,000 coaches in 160 countries in the world. And isn't that fun? And a lot of it is because of his terrific creative leadership. And so we were talking, we were saying, okay, I said, show me that cycle of success that you have. And here's the way it works. Okay, you ready? Test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter. And it's a cycle. Test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter. Test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter. Now, let me just take a moment and just share with you that this is how this works. Because when you're making leadership and you're making positive changes in your life, that there's a lot of testing. You're going into territory that you don't even know. Carly and I were doing a Q&A period at breakfast for a few of our people this morning, and one of the questions was talking about taking people where you've never been before and going into unknown, uncharted territory. And as leaders, there are a lot of times that we're doing this. There's a lot of testing going. And when we test, there's going to be some failure. Is that not true? Let me, you're sitting on me a little bit too much on that one. So let's talk about how many of you failed at least once today? I love it. Somebody in the back, they got both hands up, you know. Hey, here we go. Huh? I mean, for me, almost failure is a spiritual gift, okay? So whenever we're testing, we're all going to have failure. In fact, I it's so much part of my life. I've written a book called Failing Forward. Hello. I wrote that book. And look, a lot of you are nodding and say, well, I've read that one. Then I wrote, I wrote the book, Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. In fact, when I wrote Failing Forward, I wrote it on a cruise. The story is, about a week before Margaret and I went on a cruise, I looked and on the calendar, it was a 2-week cruise. And I thought, oh my gosh, 2 weeks? We were going to see the fjords of Norway. So I sat down with Margaret and I said, 2 weeks to see the fjords of Norway. Doesn't that seem a little long? Now, I'm a person of faith. Relax. I'm a person of faith, and, God created the heavens and earth in 6 days. And we're taking 2 weeks to see the fjords of Norway. So we made a compromise. We went on that 2-week vacation. Anybody that doesn't believe in compromise doesn't stay married very long. Hello. So we kind of did that little compromise kind of a deal, but the whole process was, she said I could write a book while we're doing the fjords of Norway. So we got this beautiful suite up front with all glass, and I got my legal pad because I write with a pen and a legal pad, and so we could see the fjords, and we'd go in these inlets, and I'd be writing away, and then there'd be a fjord. And I'd stop and I'd say, Margaret, there's a fjord. Oh my goodness. Wow, that's something, isn't it? I'd write about it. Oh, there's another fjord. Look at that. You know what? That fjord looks just like that fjord. 2 weeks done, book written. 240 legal pages full of scribbles and stuff, and there's a rubber band around it, and she's carrying it off the ship, and about halfway down, she stops and says, John, love the book. Thank you. I said, so what did you like about the book so much? Oh, my gosh. She said, you're so open about your failures. I mean, on every page, you talk about something you did that was stupid and another mistake you made. She said, if the readers are going to love this, but they're going to say, oh my gosh, he did that. Oh, he did that. Oh, he did that. She said, you're going to connect with, she said, there's only one problem. I said, what's the problem? She said, you didn't get all your failures in the book. She said, I see a series. Failure 101, 201, 301, 4. She said, I see a series. Well, I've written 2, and I'm getting ready to write a 3rd one. It's when you're testing, you're failing. And then you learn. But learning isn't enough. I know a lot of people say, well, I learned. Did you improve? Learning isn't going to help you. That's just mental. Did you improve? Well, we always kind of admire the person that, we call it tenacity, where they get up and they get knocked back down, and they get up and they get knocked down. They just get up and knocked down, and they just keep getting up and they keep knocking down. We say, oh my gosh, I admire them so much. They are so tenacious. They don't quit. I just love that. I wonder what makes them keep getting back up and knocked back down. Stupidity. After about 2 or 3 knockdowns, stay down. Stay down. Don't get up until you figured it out. You want to learn, you want to improve, and then guess what? Then you re-enter. Today matters. And if you're really going to leadership correctly, you gotta value yesterday, but you got to live in today. I had a sign in my office for several years, and it just said beautifully, yesterday ended last night. Just ended last night. Get over it. If you were successful, I got something for you. It ended last night. You can't live on yesterday's success. If you failed, I've got good news for you. It ended last night. Today matters. We over-exaggerate yesterday, we overestimate tomorrow, and we underestimate today. And it's today what matters. I can still remember sitting down with an author that mentored me in my early years, and I brought to him my latest book, and we were having dinner, and we were out in Colorado Springs. And so I gave it to him. I said, it just came out, it's my latest book. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and said, John, is this a real good book? And I looked at him and said, yes. I said, it's a real good book. It's a good book. And I'm proud of it. He said, I'm glad. He said, because let me say something to you. The most important thing for you to do is every time you write a book, make sure it's your best. Because he said, if you put out a book that's not good, all of your readers, the next time another book comes out, they're going to ask, should I buy it or not? He said, make sure that everything you do is right there. It's at your best. And people ask me all the time, they'll say, John, when you're writing books, what's your favorite book of all the books you've written? And it's very simple. My favorite book is the book I'm writing. It's the book I'm doing right now. It's my favorite book. In fact, when I'm writing, I think, oh my gosh, this is so good. Why didn't I write this earlier? Yes. And then it gets published. And then I write another one. This one's better. Somebody said, how long are you going to write books? I'm going to keep writing books as long as I think the one I'm writing is the best I've ever done. And the day that I don't get excited about what I'm doing today is the day I quit. You see, you value yesterday, but you understand, you've got to live in the moment. You've got to live in today. The third thing you want to do is you want to rely on speed, but thrive on timing. You see, all leaders have something in common, regardless of culture, age, it doesn't matter. All leaders have one thing in common, and that is they see more than others see. They see the big picture. I mean, that's why they're a leader. And they not only see more than others see, they see before others see. So they not only see it bigger, they see it quicker. And that's what sets them apart. And by the way, when I go back to the fast forward talk I had a moment ago with you, when I started off, when things were at a slower pace, seeing more than others see, that was bigger than anything else. But can I tell you something today? It's been replaced now. Now it's seen before others see. Things are going so fast. You need to leadership and change so quickly that it's seen before, because there's a great advantage of seeing before and get started first. Now let me just say this. If you're in a group of 10 people and they all see more than you see, and they all see before you see, leadership is not your thing. Okay? But seeing before is all about speed and seeing more. When you see more, it's all about the context of the big picture. That's a lot about timing. But the before is such an advantage because it lets you get started first. I was having dinner a few years ago with Gail Devers, and you recognize that name, that great Olympic lady athlete that won more medals, gold medals, than any other track star. Oh, she was amazing. In fact, when I was having dinner with her and her husband that night, and she had her little girl with her, she was getting ready for the next Olympics, and she was really going to be in time trials running against girls that were young enough to be her children. And so she's just an amazing, amazing athlete. So we're having a great dinner, and I'm waiting for this. I'm just waiting for it. And so I finally get close to the end of the dinner, and I said, Gail, just what you've accomplished is amazing as an Olympic athlete. And gosh, I said, I've been thinking about this. I've been hesitant to talk to you about it. But I just have to bring it up. I think if you and I ran a 100-yard race, I think I could win. And then she looked at me and with this incredible disbelief, and she said, what do you mean? I said, what I mean? I said, I think I ran a 100-yard race with you. I could win. She looked at her husband and said, did you hear him? Yeah, I heard him. And she looks back at me and said, you gotta be kidding me. And then what really hurt is she looked at my body. I hate that. She looked at this Pillsbury Doughboy. You know what I'm saying? And she's just, you got to be kidding me. I got her right on the edge, just exactly where I wanted. I mean, I got her, she was ready to take her heels off, go out in front of that restaurant, and we're going to run a block. I mean, the juices were going, and I got her right where I wanted her. And I said, now, Gail, before we go out and race, I just want you to know, I can win if you give me an 80-yard head start. And she just kind of sat back and said, well, of course. If 80 yards, yes, okay, if I give you 80, yeah, you could win a race. Now, let me just say something. All dinner long, I thought about the 80 yards. I so desperately wanted to say 70. But I got to thinking about 70 and I'm not sure. But on 80, yes, even this fat boy can roll across. I can win if I get, now see, we're not talking about speed. She's a lot faster than me, but I got started first. It's getting started first, seeing before others see. In this leadership team, one of the things that's incredible is that when you begin to learn to make these positive changes, you begin to understand context, which is more, and the big picture, and then you begin to understand timing and getting started and being first. It begins to be pretty incredible. Let me just say this. When you see the bandwagon, it's too late to lead. Okay? Number 4. Before I give you number 4, are you learning something? Okay. I know you are. The real question is, don't say anything. Just glance at the notes. Can I go on? Are they ready? Huh? Okay. And you'll help them, right? You'll help bring them along. Number 4, the big picture should keep getting bigger. When you leadership correctly, that vision, that picture, it just grows and it begins to expand. Last year was the 25th anniversary of me writing the book, Developing the Leader Within You. So my publisher came and asked me to do a revision of the book. I said I'd be glad to do a revision of that book. And in the contract, they said I had to revise 15%. So I went back to a book I wrote 25 years ago. I don't recommend this because I went into about 3 days of depression. I read this book and I kept saying, this isn't very good. I got to tell the 2.5 million people that bought this isn't very good. So when I started revising it, I didn't revise 15%, I revised 85%. I mean, it's almost like it's why it's called Developing the Leader Within You 2.0. It's a new book. I mean, it's the same title, but it's a new book. And the reason why 25 years ago, when I wrote that book, we were on the same page. We were on the same level. But guess what's happened in 25 years? I'm growing. The picture's getting bigger. I'm learning. I'm getting better. 25 years later, I'm here. But where's the book? The book's down here. I had to go back. I had to go back and catch up. Somebody said, didn't that bother you that you had to revise 85% of the book? No, it just made up. I'm getting 85% better. I'm growing. So you see, when you're leader shifting correctly, the picture just gets bigger and you're expanding. And let me just put it this way. If what you did 5 years ago still excites you, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. I mean, there's nothing worse than having leaders that are historians. You know, I thought leadership was kind of like going forward. But there's some leaders that all they do is talk about the good old days. And let me just tell you, the good old days, they weren't that good. You just got memory loss. They weren't that good. They weren't that good. The big picture should be getting bigger. Number 5, live in today, but think about tomorrow. If you're going to leadership correctly, you live now, but you're constantly out there. And why do you have to be thinking about tomorrow all the time? Because the future has a way of arriving unannounced. It just does. I mean, all of a sudden, it's here. And time just goes fast. And so we're living today, but we're constantly thinking about in the future. I sometimes do a teaching called Advanced Attraction, which basically simply says that if you know who you are and if you know what you want, okay, then what happens is, once you know who you are, once you know what you want, then your mind will begin to think things that will get you what you want, and your eyes will begin to see things that will get you what you want, and your ears will begin to hear things that will help you get what you want, and your mouth will start to say things that will help you get what you want, and your hands will help you do things that will help you get what you want, and your life will begin to attract things and attract people that will help you get what you want. Now, it all begins, advanced attraction always begins by the fact that you're thinking tomorrow. You know what you want, you know what you're going for, you know what you're going after. And then it begins to attract the people, the resources, the experiences that you need to get there. Number 6, if you want to leadership well, move forward courageously in the midst of uncertainty. Wow. You see, life expands or basically shrinks based upon the amount of courage that we have. And when you begin to lead in uncertain areas, in pathways that you've never taken before, one of the first things you do is you know that you move forward courageously, even when you don't have all the answers, even when you don't have all the resources in your life. There are some people that they're saying, you know what, I'm not going to go forward until I have all the answers. You'll never go forward. Well, I'm not going to go forward until I have all the resources. You'll never go forward. Leadershiping means that you go forward courageously. You see, people, they don't follow titles and positions. They follow courage. And sometimes that courage means that you and I are walking out and we aren't certain. And the future isn't completely clear to us. And it's the fact that we need to have moral courage to do the right thing regardless. I was being interviewed the other day, as some of you know, many of you probably don't know, but one of our organizations, we're major into helping bring transformation into countries. And it's an incredible project of basically in small groups teaching real good values to people and helping them learn those values and live out those values until our goal is to get the tipping point in any country of 10% of the population in these small groups, learning and living and fleshing out these values. And it's going well, but it's a big project. And so in the interview, they asked me, they said, what do you think your odds are of ever transforming a country? And I said, they're very low. And I surprised him. He said, well, if they're so low, why are you doing it? I said, because it's right. My leadership isn't based on odds. My leadership is based on what's the right thing. What's going to help people. I would rather have something bigger than me, of which I never get there. Are you with me? I never get there. I would rather die never seeing a country transformed, knowing that we're in the midst of adding value to a whole bunch of people and teachers. I would rather die not arriving at something big than to live embracing something small. You were created, I was created for something bigger than us. And I'm a person of faith, and I don't want to project that on you, but it's just very simple. One of my early mentors said, John, do something so big that people who know you will look at you and shake their heads and say, I know you. You're not that good. You're not that good. God must have helped you. And I just at that moment said, I'm going to embrace God's space. I'm going to be saying, okay, I'm going to do something a little bit bigger than what is beyond me and maybe even beyond my team. That's what leadershiping is all about. Making the shifts, the changes that will allow you to get there. One more point, number 7. Realize that today's best will not meet tomorrow's challenges. Leadershiping is all about getting better. Everyone can improve. Everything can be improved. And every day has improvement possibilities. And we just need to do an autopsy on our success. I was having a conversation with Mark Cole, my CEO of my companies. We were traveling internationally and we were having a dinner conversation, and he talked to me about, said, John, he said, I watch you get very excited about the moment and celebrate the moment. He said, you celebrate really well the moment. But he said, the next day I watched that celebration turn to dissatisfaction. And he said, can you talk to me about how can you be so thrilled with something that we just have done and it was wonderful, and the next day you're already kind of moving on and dissatisfied? I said, it's very simple. It's the difference between best and better. You see, I'm doing my best right now to deliver a teaching on leaderships to you. And it's the best I can do. I mean, I've worked on it. I put the best stuff I know, and I got up early this morning and looked at it again, and I know I wrote the book, but I'm still rewriting the book, and I'm giving you my very best. I really am, and it's my best, and that's good, because you deserve the best. You deserve 100%, but here's what I want you to understand. My best today can get better tomorrow. And so when I go to tomorrow, the dissatisfaction is, how can I take the best now? And so the best today becomes the floor for tomorrow. I build on the floor. I build off of the floor. It's kind of like, okay, that was good. I gave it 100%, but 100% was yesterday. And I got to give it 100% again today, as my mentor John Wooden so beautifully taught me. When he would look at his ball players in practice and they weren't giving it 100%, he'd go up to him and say, hey, you're not giving me your best. I know, coach. My gosh, girlfriend broke up with me last night, got exams. Oh my, I'm tired. I'm giving you about 70%. Okay, 70%. He said, now here's the mistake you're making. You think you can give me 70% today and you can make it up tomorrow. He said, you can't do 130% tomorrow. You can only do 100%. He said, what you don't do today, what you don't do today is left on the table forever. It's lost. It's lost. Leadershiping is all about taking best and then tomorrow saying, best was good yesterday and it was my best and I have integrity in it, but I want it to be better tomorrow.
Wow, what an incredible start. I love how the challenge to shift can be life-changing, but simple enough that you can start right now. Now, before we jump back in with John on part 2 of this online event, I want to tell you a little more about the Complete Leadership online course. At the John Maxwell Company, we recognize that high-performing leaders have so many demands on their time, and reacting to shifts in the leadership landscape always compounds the pressure to get it done. We don't want to waste a minute of your time in this course, so let's break down what you get. 12 video lessons taught by John, 12 practical application videos with Mark Cole, CEO of the John Maxwell Enterprise, along with guides and worksheets for each module. Plus, you'll get 5 bonus keynotes and interviews with some special guests. But this exclusive course is more than just insights and principles. It is loaded with practical, applicable exercises, each one enabling you to expand on what you are learning and providing you with concrete next steps to grow. Leaders know shifts happen. Great leaders prepare for them in advance. As a bonus, in this online course, you're going to hear from some great leaders who own this principle. Leaders like Rachel Hollis, a successful entrepreneur and author of New York Times bestseller, Girl, Wash Your Face. Trent Shelton, former NFL wide receiver and founder of powerfully impactful nonprofit Rehab Time. Mark Cole, CEO of the John Maxwell Enterprise. And Ed Bastian, CEO of Delta Airlines. So, how much is your personal leadership worth? What's the value of not just staying ahead, and not only getting ahead, but leading the way in times of change? Over the course of the 12 modules, I'm convinced leadership is an invaluable resource for you. Now, the total value of this course is $995. That's what it would cost you to be ready to embrace the shift you know is coming. But the question to ask might be, what will it cost you if you don't? Well, here's the great news. We want you to have access to this content for $395. But this is a limited time offer. After you watch this online event, you will have 72 hours to capitalize on the significant opportunity to make the most of your leadership. You have a little time to decide. Think about it while we watch this next teaching with John.
The next lesson I want to teach on leader shifting is shifting from directing to connecting. And I call this the communication shift, okay? And I love this lesson too, because I think that if I can help you leader shift in this area, it's going to be pretty amazing how much you're going to grow and how much you're going to develop. So let's talk about this. First of all, this was not a natural shift for me. In fact, of the shifts that I talk about in leader shifts, almost all of them were not natural. And I tell you that because when people think of change and growth and evolution, sometimes they kind of almost think that they're natural. This is kind of the next thing I fall into. A lot of these I didn't fall in. And let me just tell you why this wasn't a natural shift to me, because you see me now and you would see me very much as a connector. But first of all, I grew up in a home that I had a strong, choleric father, very good father, but we never had any doubts what we were supposed to do. I mean, we didn't wake up as children and wonder. My father had a plan for every one of our lives, and he had that plan laid out, and we would sit down and have our family meetings, and we all knew what our chores were, and we know that we had to have all those chores done by Saturday at noon. And so all the expectations were very clear. Everything was very direct. And then you got to understand, I grew up in a theological background where in our theology, we were basically taught that the pastor was the head of the church and the authority of the church. And so basically, you kind of preach those messages, and they really weren't two-way streets. You know what I'm saying? They were kind of like, I'm going to direct you, and here we go, and lay not your hand on God's anointed. We love that verse. You know what I mean? And every time we thought that, we needed to have something passed, we made sure that you didn't lay your hand on God's anointed. And guess who was God's anointed? The pastor. Of course we were. Of course we were. We just loved some of those, we loved some verses we didn't talk about. So I grew up in a theological kind of a direct pathway type of deal. And then, my temperament. I'm a choleric. And again, I've never really kind of tried to figure out, I've never had a day where I said, I got to kind of figure my life out. I kind of had my life figured out very early. And we used to have a saying, God has a plan for your life. And I would tell my people, God does have a plan for your life. And if you can't figure it out, come to me and I'll give one to you. And so you got to understand, direct, I was pretty good. People kind of followed me and they kind of understood where I was and where I got. But let me talk, this shift became very gradual, but it became very definite. I could still remember in my early 30s, reading a book by Florence Littauer called Personality Plus. And this book was all about the 4 temperaments. And she was a fun writer. She wrote it in such a fun way that it was an entertaining book. But basically, she was helping me understand the different temperaments. And being choleric, when I would, I wondered why I didn't have any clue why people would want to be phlegmatic and and why they'd be melancholy. When I took the test, I had no melancholy in me. I had no phlegmatic in me. So I always just kind of thought that if you were really going to be successful, you were going to be choleric with a little sanguine mixed in. So, you drove hard and had fun. And if you could drive hard and have fun, life was good. And I'm driving hard and having fun. And where are you? And why aren't you driving hard and having fun? And what do you mean you need to think about it? Okay, have a minute, think about it. Okay, now are we ready to drive hard? So I'm very, very narrow, very narrow. And when I started reading her book, it was just eye-opening to me. I thought, oh my, John, you're such an idiot. Look at all the people that are so good and effective, and they don't have your temperament at all. So that kind of jolted me. And then when I got ready to start my first company, I was a pastor, but people were starting to want tapes and resources, and I needed to get a company to handle the resources, which is today the John Maxwell Company. And I remember bringing Bob Beal in as a consultant to help me give directions. And Bob, when he came in, he was going to be out for 2 days with us. And for the first day, all he did was ask questions. And when I said all he did was ask questions, it's very simple. All he did was ask questions. I mean, he asked me 500 questions. In fact, he would ask me a question, so I'd share it with him. And I think we're done with the questions now. I think we'll kind of move on. And he'd ask me another question. And at the end of the day, I said, Bob, I'm paying you an awful lot of money just to ask questions. And he said to me, John, I got to find you before I can lead you. Okay. All right, a little less direct again, okay? It was another step. And then when I watched Pat Summitt at the University of Tennessee take her team in for the halftime, and the 3 questions on the marker board at halftime for the girls was, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? What must we change? And I watched these lady basketball players without any coaches. The coaches huddled off in another room. They went up there and they were talking about the game. And here's what we did right. Here's what we did wrong. And they were writing down, did right, did wrong. Here's what we have to change. And then I watched Pat Summitt walk in. At the end of that discussion, look at that marker board, make a couple comments about what they stated and what they said. Sent them out, and it was later, after that night, we had a long dinner, and I asked her about that exercise, and she said, John, when I started off as a coach, I led by assumption. Huge statement. And she said, I was constantly missing my players. I assumed they knew things, and she said, the only way I could find out is instead of assuming they knew something, I had to ask them questions. Again, it gets me from directing to more connecting mindset. And so let me tell you a little known story. And that is, most of the time when I teach and lecture, I do what I'm doing right now. I sit on a bar stool. And I found it to be an incredible way to be conversational in my teaching. But it was purely by accident, because when I started in the beginning, I would stand up and I was very intense. And again, I wanted you to get it. So I spoke loud and direct. And if I didn't think you got it, it didn't bother me. I just did it again louder and more direct. And, I'm just wanting to make sure you got it. When I'm done, I want them to walk out and say, they got it. They got it. And so I was in a racquetball tournament, and I really pulled the lower right part of my back really bad. So bad that for 2 days I couldn't get out of bed. And then I had to go to Pennsylvania to do a conference, and it was a 2-day conference. And I thought, I can't do this. I can't physically do this. So Margaret went along with me, because I couldn't get up myself, couldn't dress myself. So she went with me, and so I told her, I said, I'll come, but you have to have a bar stool for me and a table, so I'll just sit and I'll teach. And that's what I did for 2 days in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I just sat on a bar stool and I taught. So I'm going back to the airport and I'm thinking, wow, I came in this with a bad back and I can't believe the energy I have. I've got a lot more energy than what's normal. And all of a sudden it hit me. It's because I wasn't expending my energy standing. That I was relaxed and that it didn't require as much energy. And then all of a sudden it hit me. Not only did I save energy by sitting, but what I did is my teaching became conversational instead of directional. And so this was purely by accident. I'm not smart enough to figure this out. If I wouldn't have pulled my back, I would have never sat down and started teaching. And I'm not telling you to do that at all. I don't think. It just fit me. And from that day on to this day, I basically have chosen, when I can, there's few occasions I can't, but when I can, is to basically sit. Because I find that if I sit with you, I connect with you. If I'm standing, it can get a little bit more directional. So the difference between directing and connecting, let me compare it for a moment. Directing is kind of authoritative, where connecting is collaborative. It's a different mindset. Do I want to come across as an authority with you, or do I want to come across as a person that wants to collaborate with you? Directing is all talking, whereas connecting is quite a bit of listening. Directing is top down, connecting is side by side. When you direct people, you enlist them. When you connect with people, you empower them. Direction is more assuming. Connecting is more understanding. Directing gives answers. Connecting asks questions. Okay? Directing's more my agenda. Connecting's more your agenda. When I direct, I'm standing on my ground. When I connect, I'm going to your ground. And this is a great leader shift to make in your leadership. I think directing is mostly all about me, and I think connecting is a lot more about you. So how do we find common ground? So if we're going to be connecting with people, we got to find common ground with them. That's where it starts. My goal is always to find common ground with you. So how do I do that? What's needed to find common ground? Number one, humility. And when I speak of humility, let me say it in this context. Let people know that you need them. There's something very connecting when you go up to people and say, I need you. Especially when it comes from a leader. And by the way, in the beginning, because I was directional, I was exactly opposite. I never expressed to the people that I needed them. You know what I thought? I thought they needed me. Back then it wasn't, my name is John and I'm your friend. Back then my name is John and I'm Superman. And I'm just going to fly in and land right among you and, wow, I'm here and be healed and be whole and, the whole process and, just kind of make everybody go to a higher level. And that, let me tell you something, that worked until God gave me a bigger dream. Now, here's what happens. When God gives you a dream that is bigger than you have two choices. You can either become overwhelmed and give up, and that's a possibility, okay? You can just say, oh my gosh, this is way bigger than me, I got to give up. So the choice are, I can either give up or I can get help. One of the two. And when the dream becomes big, all of a sudden, giving up wasn't the option. So I said, I've got to get help. I've got to have people help me. So when somebody comes and tells me that they're the phrase, I'm a self-made man, when everybody tells me they're a self-made man, I always look at them and say, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, that's so terrible. Oh, it's not the reaction they're expecting. But what I'm saying is if you've made everything yourself, you haven't made much. One is too small of a number to achieve greatness. And so today, when I look at what I see as my dream and my vision, my first response is, I need you. I gotta have people. I gotta have more people. I just, at the first of this week, sat down with my key leaders and I cast vision for them for transformation. And in the next few years, I need thousands of transformational trainers. Not hundreds. I mean, I need thousands. You say, how many thousand? I don't know. Maybe 20, 25,000. Transformational trainers. Now, I'm just stopping here for a moment. I'm sowing seed right now into you. I need you. I need you. I need every one of you to say, boy, I'd like to be a part of transformation. I'd like to be a transformational trainer. Now, it's not for me to talk about that right now. I'm just casting the vision, but I just want you to know that for what I want to accomplish, I don't need 10, I don't need 100, I don't need like 500. I need thousands of them. And I happen to believe that God will give them to me. I think thousands will, once they see the challenge and once we get the vision out there, and that's not for today, but it's going to happen very soon. And I think there's a whole bunch of people say, sign me up. I want to be a transformational trainer, of which if you do that really good, you'll graduate and become a transformational leader. Oh yeah, we're getting it ready. We're getting ready. You don't even know what it's all about, but are you excited about it? Huh? I mean, would you like? This is just mundane question for average people, but the right question for people like you. Would you just like to be a part of something a lot bigger than yourself that really changed lives and made a difference? But to do that, I need help. So there's a sense of humility in this process of making this leader shift. The second thing is if you're going to really connect with people, it's curiosity, number 2, and that is consistently asking people questions. The difference between my leadership in my 30s and my leadership now is that I lead by asking questions. I used to lead by directing. Now I lead by asking questions. Again, I try to find them before I can lead them. I wrote a book a few years ago, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. Wow. Because they do. See, as a young leader, I didn't ask questions. I just gave direction. And the reason I did that is I assumed I knew what was best for you. Now that's kind of arrogant and it's quite stupid, but I was young and stupid and arrogant. So other than that, there was no problem. But I just assumed, well, of course you're going to want to do this. And to be honest with you, I valued what I thought more than what other people thought. And I didn't realize the need to find common ground back then. So now I ask questions, and I ask questions because there are expectations we have of ourselves. There are expectations we have of others, and there are expectations that others have of us. And the only way I can find the expectations of others and the expectations others have of me is by asking questions. Because assumption is the mother of all mess-ups. You want to mess it up? Just start assuming. And wrong assumptions will create a communication gap. So number three. If you want to go from directing to connecting, number 3, it takes effort. In other words, you've got to go out of your way to connect with people. If you're going to go find them on their ground, it takes a lot of energy and effort to do that. See, the connection question is, who moves first? And the answer is, the connector moves first. You don't wait for the other person to come to you. You start going to them immediately. So when somebody tells me, when somebody says, John, it's lonely at the top, they're not a connector. Now, why is it lonely at the top? Because they didn't take anybody at the top with them. And why are they at the top all alone? You need to get off the top and go down to where the people are and bring them to the top with you. And that takes energy, that takes effort, that takes us leaving our position to go there and find the people and connect with them. So there's a tremendous amount of effort in that process too. My friend Art Williams says, and I love this effort statement, he said, all you can do is all you can do, but all you can do is enough. So just give it 100%, just give it 100% in effort. Number 4, to connect well, trustworthiness is essential. And to be a trustworthy leader is to be someone that people can count on. Maybe the greatest expression of your leadership, maybe, is when somebody comes and says, I can count on you. To have a leader that you can count on. And trustworthy doesn't mean you're perfect, okay? We got to make sure we got that right. I don't think people want a perfect leader. I think they want an authentic leader. An authentic leader isn't perfect, but an authentic leader admits to the weaknesses and the problems and does their best to fix them. They're very open. They're very transparent. And trustworthiness means that I can count on you. I can count on you. I think if we think of ourselves as being perfect leaders, if we're honest with ourselves, we disqualify ourselves. I mean, let me take a poll. How many of you are just amazingly perfect? Just check it. Just check. Because there might be one. I'd like to kind of meet you and kind of say, can I just rub up against you and see if a little bit of that amazingly perfect comes off? How many of you have probably had some failures in your life and made some pretty big mistakes? Would you relate to that? Okay. Now, that shouldn't disqualify you as a leader. If you're authentic and you're willing to grow and learn and change. Isn't that right? I mean, to use a biblical example, Peter denied Christ, cussed, and just was totally, you talk about losing it. In the very hour that, the Savior needed him, old Pete wasn't to be counted on at all. And remember, he was so arrogant that he told God, when Christ told him somebody's going to die, he said, well, it won't be me. It won't be, it could be him, yeah. It could be, won't be me. And it was him. But isn't it incredible? Just a few weeks later, he was the guy that preached at Pentecost and literally brought in the early church. Now, he wasn't a perfect leader. But remember that encounter that Christ had with him? Peter, do you love me? Because Jesus understood the grounds of leadership should be based upon the love that you have for him, not the fact that you do it all right all the time. That kind of leaves hope for all of us, doesn't it, huh? So we don't need to discount ourselves. We just need to be authentic. But that helps us connect with people. And by the way, there's something about humanness that's very connecting. We impress people with our success, but we impact them with our failure. And one of the first things we need to do is close the gap. Close the gap. It's good to lead people if you're a little in front of them. It's no good to lead people if you're a mile in front of them. You got to be close enough that they can see you, talk to you, feel you, touch you, be warmed by you. Does that make sense? One let me just, oh my gosh. Okay. Number 5 is generosity. Just be a generous person. Be the first to give. Be the first to care. Be the first to connect. Generosity is living outside of yourself. The success of my day is based on the seeds I sow, not the harvest I reap. 98% of the people, the success of their day is by the harvest that they reap. Become a seed sower. Don't worry about the harvest. Can I tell you something? The harvest will take care of itself. Don't worry about the harvest. You just sow seeds every day. My entire life, I've just sowed seeds, what I found is it's become huge in my life. It's now I'm reaping this incredible harvest, and I'm still just sowing seeds. If you'll just sow seeds all your life, don't worry, your harvest will be pretty big. Number 6, if you want to connect with people, listening. The best way to find common ground is by being a listener. I love what Andy Stanley says. He said, leaders who don't listen will eventually be surrounded by people who have nothing to say. Isn't that powerful? They'll eventually be surrounded by people who have nothing to say. And the last connecting link, to go from a directing person to a connecting person, the last link is encouragement, which gives people oxygen for their soul. That's what encouragement is. Just breathe into their soul by lifting them up, by encouraging them, by believing in them. My father is a great encourager. Okay, he'll be in November 15th, he'll be 97. And he's just a great encourager. And I asked him one time, I said, Dad, how do you know people need to be encouraged? He said, oh, son, that's simple. If they're breathing, they need to be encouraged. He said, now, son, if they're not breathing, don't waste your time. But if they're breathing, they need to be encouraged. And he was such a phenomenal example of that, of just encouraging people. And I just want you to, when you connect people, let me just do a little survey. How many of you like to be encouraged? Okay. We do. We all like to be encouraged. There's something about it. When somebody's going to come, when somebody's encourager, when you see them coming, it just fills your heart with hope, doesn't it? And aren't there other people, when you see them walk into the room, you say, oh, God, keep them away from me. The closer they get to you, the more they suck life right out of you. Okay? Be an encourager. My daughter, Elizabeth, every year we had a Thanksgiving tradition as she was growing up, and we'd take the wishbone and we'd dry it off, the day, and then in the evening, the last thing kind of we do after the Thanksgiving dinner evening is we'd make a wish, and and I would always go to that dry wishbone, and I'd make sure that I had the fragile side, so that when we would do it, she always won. And after about 8 or 9 years of winning every time, she said, Daddy, she said, I always win. I always win. She said, every time we do this, I win. And she said, I always get to tell you what my wish is, but I never hear what your wish is because I win. And she said, I won again today. She said, what's your wish? And I said, oh, baby, my wish is for you to always win. I always want you to win. I always want life to be better for you. I always want to see the best for you. When you do that, when you encourage people, you become a great connector in life.
So here we are, leaders. We're sitting on the next great idea, the next explosive opportunity. Our vision is focused, and while there might be uncertainty about what the future holds, we don't suffer from a lack of clarity around what it should look like. So why would we risk all of that for an unforeseen shift? A shift in the leadership landscape can mean great peril or great possibility. In over 40 years of developing leaders, John has practically seen it all. And his heart for you as a leader is to help you see just a little bit further. That's why Leadership is such an invaluable resource for you and for the sphere of influence you have been given. These leadership principles will position you to be ready for when the game changes. The practical exercises will provide you with real-world scenarios and tools, giving you the confidence you need to lead yourself and those around you to the next level. It's time to make a shift. Are you ready? Now, like I said before, you can access this complete online course for just $395. That's $600 off the retail price of this premium content from John and the incredible lineup of influencers who've contributed to this course. For $395, you're getting 12 video teachings with John, 12 application videos with Mark Cole, CEO of John Maxwell Enterprises, fill-in-the-blank notes, and application guide for every module. That's over 28 video lessons and tons of guided content to help you implement these shifts. As a bonus, you're going to hear from some great leaders who own this principle. Leaders like Rachel Hollis, successful entrepreneur and author of New York Times bestseller, Girl Wash Your Face. Trent Shelton, former NFL wide receiver and founder of powerfully impactful nonprofit Rehab Time. Mark Cole, CEO of the John Maxwell Enterprise. And Ed Bastian, CEO of Delta Airlines. Now remember though, this offer only stands for the next 72 hours. You have 72 hours, but you can choose to shift right now. Just enroll by using the button below to claim this offer and start this course today. You know that shifts are going to happen. You also know great leaders prepare for them in advance. What hangs in the balance is your vision for the future. Let us partner with you to get there, in spite of the twists and turns that come with a shifting landscape. Leadership. Let's embrace the opportunity that change brings us together. Thanks for joining us for today's online event, and we'll see you inside the Leadership Online course.